Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today I am covering Chapter 46. What a chapter, guys. Winter is coming. I kid, of course, but I did slightly get some Winterfell vibes here, I guess you could say. Although there's more of an Asian influence, I think, on the culture and possibly the architecture as well. Hard to say specifically. I get a mini called it Inri the Beggar. I remember putting out several options for who the beggar could have been, but as I recall, I think I more or less weighed most heavily the correct prediction. And that was a really creepy scene at the end of this chapter. Very interesting. We'll have a chat about what is true and what is not, I think. And we get some Lan backstory, which is great. Very exciting. It seems he was certainly more than a war hero. He seems to be a nobleman. Maybe even more than that. Uncertain. More questions are raised. Let's get into it, shall we? They hop out of the way gate to rolling forested hills. Most of the trees appear dead, gray skeletons clawing at the sky. And Nynaeve comments, as dead as the blasted lands. Lan tells them that they are in Shinar. We're in the borderlands. Rand clocks that his tone suggests there's a sense of homecoming. Moraine tells them they're only a few miles from Faldara, and they start heading off in that direction. As they're going, Rand notices some strange trees that appear to have been struck by lightning, and Lan explains that here it gets so cold that the sap expands and then causes the trees to explode. And when they do so, it sounds like fireworks. That's a really interesting thing for Jordan to highlight. It really serves to accentuate the hardness of this land, the danger of this land. It's quite a tone setter. Rand compares in his imagination what the trees bursting must be like in an ordinary winter versus this strange one. Matt makes a comment about the weather, and Lan says, "This is a fine spring, sheepherder. A fine spring to be alive, but if you want warm, well, it'll be warm in the blight." And I'm curious about that comment. One, it speaks to Lan's hardiness, I guess you could say. But what does he mean it'll be warm in the blight? I hear blight. I suppose I had imagined a barren wasteland, which may or may not have included volcanoes. I don't know how common it is for such drastic temperature changes, considering how close they are to the blight, to be normal. But it could also just be something like there are so many Trollocs you'll be running most of the time, and therefore your blood will be pumping and you'll be warm, kind of a thing. I don't think it's that. There is also the magical element to this world, so it may well be that one step and suddenly it's 100 degrees. Matt is continuing to complain. He seems to be taking the cold uniquely badly. They're passing by farms, and they all notice something kind of strange. It looks empty. It is empty, for all intents and purposes, at least. There's a single lone chicken scratching in one of the yards, but doors are open, wagons are left untouched. Rand notes a tall house, odd to Rand's two river eyes, with its sharp-peaked roof of big wooden shingles running almost to the ground. And I thought about conical roofs designed to help snow slide down. But then I start to think, no, that's not quite what was described here. And now I imagine, particularly based off of what we learn of the culture moving forward, more Asian influence on the architecture here. Anyway, it's strangely deserted. No smoke in the chimneys, wagons left, a scythe in the middle of a yard. We'll get to that scythe in a moment. Nynaeve comments on Moraine and Lan. I don't think she expected this. And Egwene wonders, where did they all go? Why? They can't have been gone very long. Matt asks how she could possibly know that. And Egwene explains, the curtains in the windows. They look too light for winter curtains, even here. As cold as it is here, no woman would have had those up more than a week or two, maybe less. Knave nods along. Curtains are definitely something I wouldn't have necessarily noticed. I know you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day, but I certainly don't know the origins of that, and so the idea of winter curtains is something foreign to me. But I think we're supposed to take away from this that this was a reasonably feminine observation. Perrin chuckles, and the two ladies stare daggers at him. No, they don't. They raise their eyebrows at him, and he adds, "Oh, I agree with you. There wasn't enough rust on that scythe for any more than a week in the open. You should have seen that, Matt, even if you missed the curtains." And Rand takes a look at Perrin. He tries not to stare and recalls that his eyes, Rand's, were sharper when they used to hunt. But he hadn't seen anything regarding rust with the scythe that was unusual or not. And we know that Rand has been noticing Perrin's eyes lately. It only serves to highlight that Perrin is different now. And he's changing. Matt grumbles about wanting someplace warm, and Rand wonders why these village people left. I'm worried that they're all dead, but there's certainly no sign of an attack. It just looks like everyone left or disappeared. Rand tries once more to get Nynaeve and Egwene to leave. He says, "Nynaeve, maybe you and Egwene don't have to go to the Eye with us. Maybe it's enough for you to be close. Moraine didn't say you have to go. Or you, Loyal. You could stay at Faldara until we come back. Or you could start for Tar Valon." Loyal sighs and calls him Tavaren, and reminds him, "Your fate chooses ours. Besides, it will be something to meet the Green Man. Elder Hammond always talks about his meeting with the Green Man, and so does my father and most of the elders." So I do note that the Green Man has been mentioned several times in the past couple of chapters, and I don't think I have ever once commented on him yet. In part, I suppose, because I don't know that I've really had anything to say about him. I didn't think much about him, other than to accept he's some sort of guardian of the Eye of the World. But here, we're starting to get into territory that does seem interesting and noteworthy, which is to say he is striking me now as this sort of druidic figure, and that, well, Perrin says, "The stories say the Green Man is hard to find, and no one can find him twice." So this idea that you can only meet this person once in your life is neat. It's an aura of mystique about him. What happens when someone in the group has met him? We'll get to that segment a bit later on. I can only assume if he's protecting the Eye, he must be some sort of wizened figure who is, generally speaking, hopefully, on the more good side than bad. And surely he will sense the good intent of the group and come to see reason if he is initially antagonistic. They're not going to make it to the Eye of the World only to be turned away. Apparently, the Green Man doesn't avoid Ogier as much as he does humans, which makes sense. Green Man, as we come to learn, he's a sort of druidic figure. Ogier seem to have some sort of affinity with nature, whereas humans are the more industrious kind. Certainly the kind here where there's constant war. But Rand says, "The point I was trying to make is," the wisdom cut him off. "She says Egwene and I are part of the pattern too, all woven in with you three. If she is to be believed, there's something about the way that piece of the pattern is woven that might stop the Dark One, and I am afraid I do believe her. Too much has happened not to. But if Egwene and I go away, what might we change about the pattern? I was only trying to—" "I know what you were trying to do, Rand." She looked at him until he shifted uneasily in his saddle, then her face softened. I found this all to be a sweet moment. Rand is trying so hard, but both of them are dead set on joining. Her affirmation, "Yes, I know what you're doing," or trying to. "I know you are trying to protect us. I appreciate it, but we have made our choice," is well said, I think. I don't know what else she could possibly say to him. "I know what you are trying to do, Rand. I have little liking for any Aes Sedai, and this one least of all, I think. But how many other Aes Sedai has she met? No, it's not unreasonable. She's the one that took the Emmons Fielders away. But then again, she hasn't met Aleda. I have less for going into the Blight, but least of all is the liking I have for the Father of Lies. If you boys, you men, can do what has to be done when you'd rather do almost anything else, why do you think I will do less, or Egwin? It's a very good speech, and yes, we must all do our part. Sentiment. Matt comes along and says, "She called us men. It seems like only yesterday she was saying we shouldn't be off leading strings, and now she calls us men." And Egwin takes a jab at Matt. But yeah, I think after all they've been through, young though they are, they have taken the burdens of the world upon themselves. They're men. And then Egwin pulls Rand aside, and I've gone so hard at Egwin in the last couple of chapters, but it seems as if she has softened now a touch. She says, "I only danced with Aram, Rand. You wouldn't hold it against me dancing with somebody I will never see again, would you?" So it seems she's coming around to Rand. I don't like it. I don't trust it. That it only happened after other women started showing interest in him. I think of the meme, and I took that personally. But Rand, who is a better man than I, says, "No." And then he thinks, what had made her bring it up now? Of course not. And then he thinks on what Min said. She's not for you, nor you for her. At least not in the way you both want. So I wonder if this exchange will be the start of a romance between the two, which will slowly go not well. I mean, they clearly both have some interest in each other, so it's not unnatural for them to want to explore it together. It's just the meta of knowing it's probably doomed to fail that will be hard for me to read and for them to experience. And then, almost worse than that, is Rand's knowledge of Min's foretelling here, which in a way could end up as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Doomed from the start, therefore self-destructive choices. And then one day it'll come out that Rand is aware of this so-called prophecy, and Egwin is like, "How dare you, Rand, make these presumptions and not tell me this thing? It's an excuse for us to fail." They get to the town of Faldara. It's built on a hill higher than the surrounding country. It's not as big as Caemlyn, but the wall around it is roughly the same as Caemlyn's. The gray stone was grimly implacable, proclaiming that it existed for one purpose alone, to hold. So this is a very sort of bare bones, functional design aesthetic. Very practical and pragmatic. I think you can see why I did think of Winterfell and the North. Everyone takes off their hoods. Lan explains that in Shinar it is law that no one can cover their face because Fades can't not cover their face. And I'm like, man, if that's the case, why doesn't everyone have this law? And also it's like, oh, well, he says half man, not Fades. But anyway, it's like, surely then more people might seek to utilize that bit of knowledge. Maybe it's not well known, or maybe other places think it's superstition or something. They're walking through the gates. It's all very militaristic, dark iron, armored men in golden yellow surcoats bearing the Black Hawk. There's a lot of bird imagery in this chapter. I did think of the heron-marked sword. People are crying, "Daishan, Daishan!" And others are shouting, "Glory to the builders!" and "Kiserai Tiwansho!" You can definitely see Japanese influence in these words, or some of them, rather. The particles. One man asks, "Will the golden crane fly again, Daishan?" So you learn quickly enough that Lan seems to be this Daishan person, and golden crane is quite an image. I would not be able to tell you by rote what the crane represents in mythology, but I think I have a general essence to it regarding royalty and leadership. And gold, of course. But Lan says, "Peace, Reagan." And the guy falls away. They ride through the stone-paved streets. It's a very crowded city for the time being. It seems that this is where the people in the villages came, and folks are watching them. Lan leads the way to a fortress in the middle of the town, and men are continuing to shout out, "Welcome, Daishan! The golden grain! The golden grain!" They make it into the courtyard, a huge square paved with big stone blocks surrounded by towers and battlements as fierce as those on the outside of the walls. This definitely has the feel of a place at war. Men are working, smithing, children running around carrying things, 2 people, fletchers fletching. There's a man in a bright yellow cloak with a black hawk on the breast and a yellow surcoat with a gray owl, again more of this bird imagery. And the man says, "It has been long, Moraine Aes Sedai. It is good to see you, Daishan. Very good." And then he turns and bows to Loyal. "Glory to the builders, Kiserai Tiwansho." Loyal responds with, "I am unworthy, and the work small. Singu Machoba." The man says that word has been sent to Lord Agelmar of their arrival, and he's waiting for them. So they go into the fortress. This man who is taking them, we later learn his name is Ingtar, asks them, or asks Daishan, rather, if he'll raise the Golden Crane banner once more. And Lan says, "Are things really as bad as they appear, Ingtar?" Ingtar says, "Things are never as bad as they appear, Daishan. A little worse than usual this year, that is all. The raids continued through the winter, even in the hardest of it. But the raiding was no worse than anywhere else along the border. They still come in the night, but what else can be expected in the spring, if this can be called spring? Scouts return from the Blight, those who do come back, with news of Trolloc camps. Always fresh news of more camps, but we will meet them at Tarwin's Gap, Daishan, and turn them back as we always have." I'm reading that, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, this might be a person who is either taking an optimistic view or is underrepresenting how bad it really is. And maybe part of that is informed by my knowledge of how bad it more or less is elsewhere. Also, I will add, I am waiting for Moraine to tell someone about the Trolloc Ways revelation. That's in my mind. Don't forget that. Lan is a bit skeptical, but he doesn't comment on it, and they go to Lord Agelmar's study. It's a very functional room, purpose-made as all the rest of the fortress, with arrow slits in the outer wall and a heavy bar for the thick door, which had its own arrow piercings and was bound by iron straps. One tapestry covering an entire wall showing men armored, fighting Murdral and Trollocs. A table, one chest, and a few chairs were the only furnishings, except for 2 racks on the wall, and they caught Rand's eye as much as the tapestry. One held a 2-handed sword taller than a man, a more ordinary broadsword, and below them a studded mace and a long kite-shaped shield bearing 3 foxes. From the other hung a suit of armor, complete and arranged as one would wear it. And it goes on to describe the armor. Again, you're getting this sense of, these are not a frivolous people. Agelmar rises to greet them, and we get the interesting description. He seemed at first glance too peaceful for the room in his blue velvet coat with its tall wide collar and soft leather boots, but a second look showed Rand differently. Like all the fighting men he had seen, Agelmar's head was shaved except for a top knot in that pure white. His face was as hard as Lan's, the only lines creases at the corners of his eyes, and those eyes like brown stone, though they bore a smile now. I feel as if there's a sense of this is a man who would much rather be peaceful, but is eminently capable of doing things that he needs to do. He greets Lan and Moraine responds in what I can only assume is their language, again with the Japanese influence in the particles, but there are a few vowel consonant things that are very much not Japanese, almost Russian. Ninte kalichnie no domashta Agelmar Daishan. Moraine replied formally, but with a note in her voice that said they were old friends. Your welcome warms me, Lord Agelmar. And he responds in kind. He turns to Loyal and says, You are far from the steading, Ogier, but you honor Faldara. Always glory to the builders. Kiser iti wanshohe. Loyal again calls himself unworthy and bows. Agelmar presumes they came from Tar Valon, but Lan ominously says, A short journey the path we came, but more tiring than the long way. And here's where I'm like, okay, now tell him, go send some soldiers to guard the ways. But I don't recall that actually happening in this chapter. Moraine asks specifically for one night. They intend to leave very quickly. And Agelmar is confused. It seems it was a bit presumptuous of him, is my comment here. He says, "But I thought, Moraine," said I have no right to ask it of you, but you would be worth 1,000 lances in Tarwin's Gap, and you, Daishan, 1,000 men will come when they hear the golden crane flies once more. But Lan responds harshly, "The 7 towers are broken, and Malkier is dead. The few of her people left, scattered across the face of the earth. I am a warder, Agelmar, sworn to the flame of Tarvalon, and I am bound into the blight." So this is a dynamic that's going to happen a lot in this chapter, of Agelmar imploring the two of them to stay and help, and both of them saying, we can't. We have our own goal. Our fight is ours and yours is yours. And I feel a bit bad for Agelmar, especially considering what Padden Fane ends up doing later in this chapter. It makes me wonder just how bad things actually are here, and what it will take to get Agelmar to consider options that can only lead to ruin. Hopefully, he's a good enough man to know not to make certain bargains. That said, we also get this really interesting inner conflict for Lan, who's basically now confronted with, whom do I serve in this moment? I have promised myself to the warders and the Aes Sedai. That is who I belong to now. But here I am, home, and my home is begging me for help, all but begging. And it hurts me to refuse them, but I'm fighting a grander battle. You really do kind of feel for Lan here. Agelmar continues, saying, "Surely just a week." And Moraine says, "Ingtar seems to believe you will defeat this threat as if you have defeated many others across the years." Agelmar responds, "Aes Sedai, if Ingtar had to ride alone to Tarwin's Gap, he would ride the whole way proclaiming that the Trollocs would be turned back once more. He has almost pride enough to believe he could do it alone. He is not as confident as you think this time, Agelmar. How bad is it?" And it's basically pretty bad. Maybe the capital can hold, but other than that, ugh. The Trollocs have been raiding Kandor, Arafel, Saldea, and nothing like this has happened before. Not since the Trolloc Wars. Very fierce. Trollocs are massing above borders, and some people are starting to say that the world is ending and the Dark One is loose again. He makes another plea to Lan. "Lan, no, Daishan, for you are a diademed battle lord of Malkier, whatever you say. Daishan, the golden crane banner in the van would put heart into men who know they are riding north to die. The word will spread like wildfire, and though their kings have told them to hold where they are, lances will come from Arafel and Kandor, and even from Saldea. Though they cannot come in time to stand with us in the gap, they may save Shinar." Diademed Battlelord. So maybe he's not royalty, but he's certainly a war hero, though there's no reason he can't be both. But Lan again refuses. "I cannot. I am a warder, Agelmar. At first light, I ride to the blight." Agelmar then pleads with Moraine, "Will you not come at least?" And even though she seems troubled, she says, "I cannot, Lord Agelmar. There is indeed a battle to be fought, and it is not chance that the Trollocs gather above Shinar. But our battle, the true battle with the Dark One, will take place in the blight at the eye of the world. You must fight your battle, and we ours." So it's interesting to me how freely she was willing to state that she's going to the eye of the world, and Agelmar takes that to mean, "You cannot be saying he is loose." And she assures him, "Not if we win at the eye of the world." He asks if she can even find the eye. She says she can. Apparently, he thinks that Nynaeve and Egwene are Aes Sedai as well, and he's clearly hoping that at least maybe they can stay to help. And then he looks over at Rand and the boys and says, "A strange guard you take with you, Aes Sedai. Only one fighting man." Then he looks at Perrin and the axe and says, "Maybe two." And I'm like, isn't Perrin a beefier boy than Rand? Certainly two. Poor Matt. With his bow, he does big credit points to Agelmar. He offers to send a contingent of soldiers. But Lan declines, and he also says they have to make it to the Eye without fighting. So this is going to be a stealth mission, or something about fighting inherently keeps you from being able to find the Eye of the World. He then offers 10 instead of 100, but Moraine says, "No, men. It is the nature of the Eye and the nature of the Green Man. How many from Faldara have ever found the Green Man and the Eye?" Agelmar says, "Ever? Since the War of the 100 Years, you could count them on the fingers of one hand. No more than 1 in 5 years from all the borderlands together." Moraine adds, "No one finds the Eye of the World unless the Green Man wants them to find it. Need is the key and intention. I know where to go. I have been there before." And I see that. And yes, she did just say need is the key, but also we know you can only find him once. So there's concern. So maybe they're going to have to do whatever it is they need to do there without Moraine. That might make her uncomfortable. Nevertheless, her need is just as great as, frankly, everyone else's if it's about the Dark One's release. She affirms, "Need is the key, and there can be no greater need than mine, than ours, and I have something those other seekers have not." They look at Rand, and the Ogier says softly, "Tavaren." Agelmar again offers help, but Moraine assures him, "You have your battle, and we have ours." And that seems to be the end of that segment. Agelmar, compartmentalizes it away and then moves on. They share a meal. It's a simple, functional meal. Soup and bread and cheese. They speak of books and music. And Agelmar is trying to be a conscientious host. He's trying to engage the Emmonsfielders in discussion because they're all kind of quiet. It's kind of sweet, kind of awkward. And Matt says, "There's a song in the Two Rivers, Coming Home from Tarwin's Gap," which Matt almost certainly brings up because there was talk of Tarwin's Gap earlier. Agelmar has a servant bring out Two Rivers Tabak, and noteworthy only Lan and Loyal and Agelmar seem to have it. The boys don't, probably for the best. And they're smoking. Loyal expresses that he had hoped the grove would still be there. Agelmar explains, "The Trolloc Wars left nothing but memories, Loyal, son of Errant, and people to build on them. They could not duplicate the builder's work any more than could I. Those intricate curves and patterns your people create are beyond human eyes and hands to make. Perhaps we wish to avoid a poor imitation. That would only have been an ever-present reminder to us of what we had lost. There's a different beauty and simplicity in a single line placed just so, a single flower among the rocks. The harshness of the stone makes the flower more precious. We try not to dwell too much on what is gone. The strongest heart will break under that strain." I really like that philosophy. Way, way, way back when I was learning Japanese in college, if I recall correctly, the professor was talking about Japanese style and architecture and, in a way, language, and basically said a part of it is this philosophy of how much can you take away. And that's a philosophy I kind of like, simplicity. But then Lan comes in with an interesting poem. "The rose petal floats on water. The kingfisher flashes above the pond. Life and beauty swirl in the midst of death." And Agelmar says, yes, that one has always symbolized the whole of it to me too. And they bow their heads to each other. And Rand reflects on how strange Lan is. He's like an onion, like an ogre. Every time Rand thought he knew something about the warder, he discovered another layer underneath. Man, what has Shrek done to that comparison? Wrong Ogier, Rand. Loyal acknowledges he does tend to dwell too much on what is gone. And Ingtar comes in and says, "Hey, you wanted to know if anything unusual occurred, so something unusual has occurred. Someone tried to scale the wall, and he ran away, and then he was later caught scaling the wall again. I immediately presumed it to be the beggar. And I immediately presumed it to be the person that followed them through the ways. It's interesting because after the Trolloc revelation in the ways, I had assumed that they had just interacted with a Trolloc, although there was that question at the back of my mind is why would a Trolloc run away after having an arrow shot at him? Therefore, apparently he is a madman, And one of them says, "The light shields madmen. Perhaps the light cloaked the Tower Watch's eyes and allowed him to reach the walls. Surely one poor madman can do no harm." And Agelmar instructs that he be brought to them now. "Your pardon, Aes Sedai, but I must see to this. Perhaps he is only a pitiful wretch with his mind blinded by the light, but 2 days gone, 5 of our own people were found in the night trying to saw through the hinges of a horse gate. Small, but enough to let Trollocs in." And that's a very deceptively scary line there, because knowing it's Padden Fane and that his arrival coincided with the group's arrival, whatever that was, it wasn't Padden Fane. So what's going on in this place? This is very concerning. He goes on to say, "If Shinarans can be dark friends, I must be especially careful with Outlanders in these days." Moraine wants to see this man herself. "The pattern is forming a web, Lord Agelmar, but the final shape of the web is not yet set. It may yet entangle the world, or unravel and set the wheel to a new weaving. At this point, even small things can change the shape of the web." And she goes on to say that she's wary of small things out of the ordinary. They bring him in, he's hunched and has sunken eyes, and he's whining, "You've no cause to hold me like this. I am only a poor destitute, abandoned by the light and seeking a place like everyone else to shelter from the shadow." And Mat realizes it's Padden Fane, and so does Perrin. And Rand identifies him as the beggar. I'm thinking, called it. And Agelmar says, "So this concerns you after all, Moraine Sedai." Fane is doing his pitiful dark friend routine. "I didn't want to. He made me, him and his burning eyes. He made me his hound to hunt and follow with never a bit of rest. Only his hound, even after he threw me away." This whole conversation is tinged with, what is he saying that can be trusted? What is he saying that cannot be trusted? You sort of get Gollum vibes here. One wonders if they will try and redeem him. It certainly is indicated from him that he wants redemption in a way. But it is different than what I recall Gollum's situation to be, at least from the movies. I'm not sure Padden Fane can be trusted. I would be very, very wary of bringing him along as a Gollum-type figure. Gollum, as I recall, was corrupted by the ring, but beyond that, did he have any particular connection to Sauron? Did he sell his soul to Sauron to advance Sauron's goals? I don't think so. I think he just wanted the ring and to live in a cave forever, whereas Padden Fane sold his soul for whatever reason and found himself in service to the Dark One. So there are shades of similarities, but I think Padden Fane is more dangerous than Gollum in many ways. It also brings up the question of how long has he been following them, and what did he do when the party split? I don't think we'll get that answer, least of all anytime soon. Padden Fane is continuing to say, he made me. Moraine acknowledges that this does concern them and asks to speak with him alone, and to have him washed because she may need to touch him, presumably to use the power. Fane is saying, "I will not be compelled." And there was an arrogant snap that had replaced the whine. "Never again, I will not." And then he shifts. His tone became sleek and oily, and it's very creepy to read. "There is a misunderstanding here, great lord. I am sometimes taken by spells, but that will pass soon. Yes, soon I will be rid of them. Do not be misled by these, great lord. I have had to disguise myself against those who have tried to stop me, and my journey has been long and hard. But at last I have reached lands where men still know the dangers of Baalzamon, where men still fight the Dark One." I hear that, and I think, no way this guy is telling the truth, or is trustworthy, in any way, shape, or form. I almost wondered if he was possessed by the Dark One himself to put on an act, which may not be terribly off of the truth. There's also a big part shouting at me, this will be temptation for Agelmar. I really hope Agelmar's not going to be making personal sacrifices, if you know what I mean, to save Shinar. I'm very concerned. Rand stares. Agelmar says, "These people say you are a peddler called Padden Fane, and that you are following them." Fane looks at Moraine and then looks away quickly, then goes on, Padan Fane is simply one of those many disguises I have been forced to wear over the years. Friends of the dark pursue me, for I have learned how to defeat the shadow. I can show you how to defeat him, great lord. We do as all men can, Agelmar says dryly. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, but we have fought the Dark One almost since the breaking of the world without peddlers to teach us how. Great lord, your might is unquestioned, but can it stand against the Dark One forever? Do you not often find yourself pressed to hold? Forgive my temerity, great lord. He will crush you in the end as you are. I know. Believe me, I do. But I can show you how to scour the shadow from the land, great lord. If you but try what I advise, you will see, great lord. You will cleanse the land. You, great lord, can do it. If you direct your might in the right direction, avoid letting Tar Valon entangle you in its snares, and you can save the world. Great lord, you will be the man remembered through history for bringing final victory to the light. He's just laying it on so thick, Agelmar. How could you possibly be tempted? Be wary of men, dirty men who are clearly mentally ill, offering you great riches. And good man Agelmar says, he thinks a great deal of himself for a peddler. I think Ingtar is right. He is mad. Fane gets angry and says, Great lord, I know my words may appear grandiose, but if you will only... Then we get an interesting exchange. Moraine rises, slowly goes around the table. She stops behind Matt's chair, puts a hand on his shoulder, and whispers something in his ear. Whatever she said, the tension went out of his face, and he took his hand from under his coat. So he was almost certainly holding on to the dagger. I wonder what Moraine said to him. I wonder what the motivation was. I can imagine it is generally good things. Let me take care of him. We'll get the truth out of him, or I'll be more vengeful than anything you could do with your dagger to him. Or this is nothing I can't handle. Hard to say, but I would have liked to know. She stands in front of Fane, and then he starts whimpering again. I hate him. I want to be free of him. I want to walk in the light again. He shakes, he cries, he made me do it. And that's one of the really big things here. Again, particularly with the Gollum comparison, is he being honest here in this moment? And is there redemption for him? I fully expect that this is something that we will go into more depth in future chapters and or books. I'm very curious. Moraine says, I'm afraid he is more than a peddler, Lord Agelmar. Less than human, worse than vile, more dangerous than you can imagine. He can be bathed after I have spoken with him. I dare not waste a minute. Come, Lan. And the chapter ends. Very exciting. Very curious to see what's going to happen. Again, we are getting very close to the end of the book, and it's like, is this another diversion? Are they going to take him with and deal with that along the way? Because there has to be, I guess Jordan has done a reasonably good job of, I guess you could say, accomplishing 2 scenes in each chapter. So maybe the first half of the next chapter will be dealing with Fane, and then the second half will be getting right back along into the Blight for the Eye of the World search. Well, we'll see. I don't know that I have much more else to say. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Do things, bye.